Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Jobren. So welcome to my channel. This is called as the Free Mind because I'll be sharing all my input, all my knowledge about the different subjects. So hopefully to those who are currently enrolled for this semester, so hopefully my videos would able to help you to learn a lot. And even if this is just a very short video, but I really hope that I was able to help you. Okay, so for today's vlog is I'll be explaining to you our lesson number 5 in the subject of contemporary world. So our topic for today, let's talk about global media culture. So what is global? So when you talk about global media cultures, we are possessing a lot of culture. And when you talk about culture, culture is a way of life. It refers to our own human's way of life, how we present ourselves, our belief, our traditions, what are the choices we make, and how. Okay, so media culture, the main reason why there is a media culture because of mass media. And media culture emerges because there is an intersection between media and culture. So one of the reasons why there is an increased influence of globalization, it is because the flow of culture. Because we have a lot of differences when you talk about culture. We have our own belief, our own traditions, our own differences when you talk about culture. And culture can be referred to these two types of culture. We have our material culture and the non-material culture. Because as humans, we are so different when you're talking about culture. And there are things that we believe in that others don't believe on what we are saying. So that's why culture is very important when you try to understand the differences of humans. So how we present ourselves is possibly influenced by our own culture. So when you talk about material culture, this refers to us the tangible object of humans. Meaning, naataan nga culture, we have that culture because nahikap na nato, because we are able to touch it. But when you talk about the intangible culture, we also have that culture, but it is referred to as non-material culture because we cannot touch it, we can only feel it or sense it, but we are doing it. Okay, so those are the differences between the material culture and the non-material culture. That's why there are a lot of people why they are presenting themselves like that, because it is part of their own culture. And we are not doing that thing because it is not part of our culture. So again, we have our material culture and the non-material culture. Take note, culture is also articulated in symbols or illustrations. So meaning, our own culture can also be represented by symbols or illustrations, by the way we speak, by our language, by our values, and by our practices. So meaning, we can see the differences of our culture based on symbols, illustrations, based on our language, values, our practices. So that's why we have a lot of differences when you talk about culture, because we are practicing different values, symbols, illustrations, and a lot of things. Okay, so take note that we humans, we are carriers of culture. So you talk about carriers, meaning our culture is passed by us from one generation to the next generation, from our forefathers, from our ancestors. That is part of our culture. I am like this, the way I speak, because of my culture, possibly. Okay, so ingon pa sila, I am Bisaya. So the way I speak in Tagalog, I really find it hard to speak in Tagalog. Okay, so maybe my culture also influences how I speak. Okay, so we are the carriers of culture. Okay, we learn culture. Where did we learn culture? From our homes and our communities. Okay, since we are interacting, since we are a socializing agent, we'll have to socialize. So passively, we adapt everything. We adapt, we learn a lot of culture from our participation. Okay, so when we go out, when we interact with other people, so we experience a lot of cultural exchange. And I think that's normal. I love to go out. I love to blend in with other people. And passively, more or less, I can also absorb their own culture or try to adopt or to accept it and to become part of their own culture. Agree that we humans are carriers of culture? For me, yes, I am a carrier of culture, meaning I am like this because I am passively absorbing the culture that I learn from my family, from my friends, from my homes, from my communities. So I am like this because I am influenced by them. Okay? So because we are the carriers of culture, we love to socialize, we love to blend in with other people, we love to hang out with them. And possibly, that is the reason why we are like this. Especially when we go out, when we interact with other people, we experience a lot of exchanges like cultural exchange. And after that cultural exchange, sometimes there are some values or practices that we also adapt it to ourselves. We are also practicing it to ourselves, and that is acculturation, trying to adapt everything. You are like this before, but because of the cultural exchanges, you are doing their own culture to yourself. That is the acculturation. Okay, so, but when you tend to adopt certain values or practices, when you are just in public, you are doing accommodation. Meaning, you are not absorbing everything. You are just following depending on the environment. If it is for you, if it is really important to do it or to practice that values and belief, so you also try to accommodate it. That is called accommodation. Okay? So there are also times when we tend to resemble the people in the other group. Meaning when we try to resemble the people in other group, that is called assimilation. Meaning, the first thing it will happen, because of the cultural exchanges, we learn a lot of things from other culture. And because we learned something from them, from their own culture, we try to adapt it to ourselves. That is acculturation. And when you try to adapt certain aspect of their own values and practices, that is referred to as accommodation. It really depends on the environment that you are in, if it is really needed to adapt it or not. That is accommodation. You are just accommodating their own values and practices. Okay, so when we try to resemble the people in the other group, so when we try to put ourselves in the other group, you are now considered practicing the idea of assimilation. So the same will happen to us when we come to interact with other people. That's why when you go abroad, when you make friends, sometimes you will be surprised that you are also practicing their own culture, even though you are not used to that culture. So that's the process of trying to adapt, the different values that you learn from other people. Because then again, we humans are carriers of cultures. Wherever you go, whatever you are doing, then again, we are carriers of culture. So let's talk about globalization and culture. So I know that you are all familiar with this, globalization. So we are influenced by a lot of things. There are a lot of changes. There are a lot of things that is happening. And that is the influence of globalization. I am like this. I am doing this because of the influence of globalization. I have to do it. I have to change myself from a very shy teacher, from this one. So I have to do it because for me, the culture now, students learn a lot of things in social media and they are so eager to watch you on YouTube. So this is the influence, a perfect example of globalization. We are exploring the different spaces. We are exploring the different horizon, the different spaces. So trying to engage with other people. So trying to be with them or to interact with them. So take note that globalization facilitates sharing of ideas. And for me, that is true. Because I also learn a lot on YouTube. I love watching YouTube. I've gained a lot of learnings through YouTube. Even though they don't know me, I also don't know them. I just watch them on YouTube. But there is sharing of ideas. There is attitudes, values. Okay? So despite the distance, we were able to share our ideas. And that is a good thing of globalization. We are sharing our culture, our ideas and values and our ways of life through globalization. And we are also able to share it to another people with our differences in culture, globalization trying to connect us everywhere. And cultural flows, it is a term used to refer to its dynamic of culture in the age of globalization. So there is cultural flows. When you talk about cultural flows, meaning wherever you go, there is a dynamic of culture in the age of globalization. Sometimes it's easy for us to understand one another because we are so immersed with the differences of our culture. And for me, that is a good thing because even though I am just here in Leyte, no, but because of the globalization, I was able to grasp a little bit of their own culture, even if there is a huge distance from me to another culture. Okay, so global cultural flows can be viewed in different ways. So when you talk about global cultural flow, since we are so diverse, so culture are inherently and strongly unique from one another. I have my own culture, you also have your own culture. So it makes me unique and it makes you unique, and that is culture. It is inherently and strongly unique from one another. And sometimes we also have that differences in culture. And for me, that is normal. That is normal to experience cultural differentialism, meaning we are expressing our own differences in culture. And if we get to learn their own culture, and because of our open-mindedness, we are able to grasp their own culture and trying to adapt or to apply it to ourselves for the betterment of our own culture. Okay, so this view suggests that there are barriers which shield cultures from being penetrated by external inputs. Okay, sometimes there are people who are influenced by other culture and trying to change their own culture from that new learned culture. But there are also people who are not like that. They were able to learn something from others' culture, but they will still retain their own culture. For me as a Filipino, I will always retain my Filipino culture because then again, I love my culture and I am very proud of my own culture. Okay, so another view when you talk about the global flows is, although there is a widespread of globalization, and we cannot deny the fact that it gives us a lot of positive inputs, yes, but sometimes because of the global flows is sometimes there is already the term called cultural hybridization. So what is cultural hybridization? Meaning there is now a strong emerge when you talk about our global and local culture, meaning we are influenced by our global culture and trying to adapt it to our local culture because of our interaction with another people. Okay, that's why our culture now, it's called as hybridization because of the emergence of the combinations of global and local cultures. So we have this one. These global flows are the following. So we will explain that to you. The three global flows of global and local culture. Number one is the ethnoscapes. When you talk about ethnoscapes, this is the movement of people. Why there is a combination of global and local culture because people are keep on moving, people are keep on sharing, people are keep on migrating to another country. That's why this is called the cultural hybridization. So taas na siya nga levels. So ethnoscapes, meaning because of the movement of people, we are now experiencing cultural hybridization. The second global flows is the technoscapes. So when you talk about technoscapes, there is a fluid and interlinked global technology, meaning there is now the increase of very fluid. So our learning is very fluid. It's spread out, right? So there is a strong link with regards to global technology. So there are a lot of inventions, and we as Filipino, we're also trying to adapt that inventions to us. There are a lot of things happening now, especially in our lives now, and how we present ourselves. People are moving and people are trying to connect with one another despite the differences in culture. Number 3 is the finance-scapes. So because of the movement of amount of money across nation to states, because there is movement of money, right? So people are constantly moving, people are trying to adapt and trying to work abroad. And there is a huge amount of money across nation to states. Okay, that is the finance-scapes. That's why there is now a strong link between us and globalization, the finance-scape. We keep on moving, we keep on sharing, and we keep on blending with one another. The fourth is the mediascape. Mediascapes, meaning there is a fast production and transfer of information. So now it is very easy to learn a lot of things on social media, and it is very easy to do research because you can easily get something out of a very short video clip. You will able to get to know their knowledge, their skills, how they do a lot of things. And that is the influence of mediascapes, the fast production and transfer of information. And the last one is the ideascapes. So there is a movement of political image. There is a movement of political images, meaning there are a lot of movement when you talk about your own ideas, your own political images. That's why people are improving, people are moving, and we are moving everywhere. We are moving for the betterment of our culture. So instead of clashing and conflicting, no. So when you talk about culture, I think it is normal, no, that we experience a lot of clashing and conflicting. And lastly, because of culture, because of globalization, now we are experiencing cultural convergence. So when you talk about cultural convergence, it's because of the influence of globalization, our culture, the influence of mass media to how we present ourselves. Sometimes we also become one. And I think possibly that is the reason why we are experiencing a lot of changes within ourselves, trying to adapt a lot of things because of that cultural convergence. So this is linked with the concept of cultural assimilation, right? When you try to assimilate, when you try to absorb others' culture to be transmitted to us, possibly we're also practicing that to ourselves. And that is the main reason why we are influenced by others when you talk about culture. Okay, so the process of cultural convergence, meaning when we are trying to be homogeneous, when you're trying to become one with culture, when you try to become one with culture, we are now practicing cultural imperialism. So meaning we are imposing others' culture to ourselves. We are trying to be one with them. We are trying to absorb them. We are trying to blend in with them. And I think it is very rampant for today's generation. No? It's easy for us to adapt to with the differences of our own culture. Some may not adapt, but some may also adapt depending on how they see the culture that they are in. It really depends on the person handling their own culture, if they will adapt it or not. Okay, so how about the media culture? So when you talk about media culture, media is a means of conveying something. And I know when you talk about culture, no, social media is very trending. Social media is for today's generation, we are putting and investing so much effort when you talk about social media. People are doing blogging, sharing their own ideas, sharing their thoughts. And for me, that is the influence of media culture. Even ako, I am not used to speaking like this, but because of it all started with last 2 years when the pandemic hit our country, and I tried to change my own culture for me to be able to share my thoughts to the students without doing face to face. So I think this is the only way for me to try to absorb something from that culture. So I am not practicing everything, but but when I am just in public, so possibly I am also doing something like that. Okay, so media is a means of conveying something, and I really love doing this kind of thing, no, because I was able to reach a lot of students, to reach a lot of people, even though not really my students, but they were able to, I was able to help them, possibly, probably. So I was able to convey something for them. So I am just so happy that I am using the culture of another's culture to be put into myself, to be confident and speaking in front through this video. So media is a means of conveying something, a channel of communication. So there is an intersection between globalization and media. In what way? There is a intersection. Number one is there is oral communication like this. This is a perfect example of the influence of globalization and media. I am communicating with you, even though naalang there is a video, but I am still communicating with you through media. Number two is script. We can also communicate with others by writing. The printing press, electronic media, digital media. So today's generation, we are so into digital media, and we are so expressive with regards to our thoughts, with regards to how we see things. We are so expressive with our emotions through digital media. Okay, there is a good thing, and sometimes because of our extreme expression on social media, sometimes there is clashing of ideas, there is conflicting of ideas, because then again, we are living with a different culture. So instead of clashing and conflicting ideas, why not try to absorb that in a more positive way, and trying to be better in transforming ourselves despite the differences of our culture. Okay, so the digital media has become a phenomenon. Yes. Right? So the digital media has become a phenomenon. I am not a techie person. I really need the help of my husband in doing something like this. My husband is he knows a lot of technicalities. I am not like that. So I am just lucky I have that partner in my life. Okay, so with the prevalent use of social network platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube, among others, we are so diverse now. We are connecting with so many people. We are doing intersection between us and other people. And we are trying to share our own thoughts, our ideas, our knowledge to another people. So that's why self-expression, the way you express yourselves, is possibly transmitted to us through media culture. So let's try to be careful in doing self-expression, right? It's good that you're able to express that, but let's always consider the culture of another person while doing our own self-expression. Okay, so media and the Filipinos. So what happened to us when you talk about media? Again, Filipinos are known to be, they are consumers of various forms of media. And it was revealed that Filipinos are the world's top user of social media. Yes, appeal na ko ani. In a 2019 study, it was revealed that Filipinos are the world's top user of social media. And for me, that is very true. We're spending a lot of time watching YouTube, playing online games, and Filipinos love to watch movies. Yes, right? So we are so attached with our digital media. Today's generation, they are so good in dealing with social media, digital media. Okay, so media is influential in many aspects. You can learn a lot of things through media, like social media. Okay, so there are a lot of issues when you talk about media culture. And I know that you are all aware with that. So I don't have to explain that to you one by one. The main idea here is because of the globalization, we cannot, I think there is fluidity. When you talk about globalization, there's a widespread of information, too much of information. The main issue here is trying to filter a lot of information to yourself and trying to adapt what is important to you and not to adapt what is not for you, is not so important. So there are a lot of issues in media cultures because then again, people are doing self-expression. So when you do self-expression, we are just expressing our subjectivity. We are just telling what we are. We are just telling what we think is right for us. Sometimes we are so carried away with our own culture, with our own emotions for the sake of self-expression. Okay, so thank you so much for watching all my videos. I really do hope that you are learning from all the videos that I've posted. And thank you so much. So this is our lesson number 5 in the subject of contemporary world. So I really do hope that I was able to share my knowledge, my inputs when you talk about global media culture. Thank you so much and God bless you.